What is up, and welcome back to another episode of So There's That. I am your host, Kivanshi, and I missed you guys. So, quick update. So, not was it last week? So the reason there weren't any episodes released the week of the 29th of July is because the previous week I released 3 episodes. The reason I released 3 episodes that week is because I was also filming a movie that entire week. And I knew that coming from like the recovery of like doing stunt work and like emotional scenes and stuff like that, that I would have to recover the week of the 29th. So I am so sorry for the postponement, but in that time I've still been watching shows. I've been taking notes. I've been discovering new shows. A lot of my favorite shows have come back for another seasons, to include Your Honor season 2, which is out, season 6 of The Dragon Prince, which is anime, and I've been going deeper into my international TV shows and stuff as well. So, you know, it wasn't just like just sitting and chilling and doing nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, your girl has been working, still posting content and information on my Instagram page. You can follow me over there at So There's That Podcast. No spaces, no underscores, no nothing. I am very active on there every single day, dropping new information, new shows, fanning out, just being my regular goofy self. And I even post pictures of some of my tweets, you know what I'm saying, some of my hot takes and stuff over on Twitter, and bringing it over to Instagram so y'all can kind of get a good feel of everything that's going on. So yeah, I wrapped the film, and it's my first lead in a film, in my first horror film, so I'm super excited. I have a lead role underneath my belt. Look me up on IMDb if you're curious about any other work that I've done. But you know, today isn't about me, okay? Today we're giving Tubi some love, okay? Everybody talked about Tubi. So what's the evolution of Tubi, right? I remember, because I'm old, when Tubi came out, Tubi was like a little bit above Crackle. So like if you think about airlines like Spirit and Frontier, Crackle was Spirit and Tubi was Frontier, right? So it was also the avenue for like film crews and like up and coming directors, small production companies, independent filmmakers to put movies out. A lot of it was very much like iPhone quality or Samsung Galaxy Note 5 quality, but it was a space that had a lot of people being able to put their stories and stuff out there, more specifically Black people and people of color. And so I don't know if y'all have heard like, oh, this is a Tubi movie, this is a Tubi movie, and that's mostly because plot lines and stuff would be very much on the nose or very predictable and easy to like figure out, but it was still great because let's say you were watching Lifetime or you were watching something on BET, you would start to be like, oh wait, hold on, like I know that person, and then you go back in there and you're like, oh, they were in this movie like on Tubi. I know around the time where I started watching Tubi, I would watch Tubi and then I would go to like the hood section of Prime Video and I would see some of the same people in like director teams. And so I watched Tubi like at its inception, and now I'm like watching like Tubi originals. And not only do they have like a lot of good independent film companies and like small production companies, but now they're starting to put on like obscure TV shows and movies, and I'm talking like cult classics that you cannot find on Netflix or Hulu or anywhere else. They're starting to put it on Tubi. So shout out to Tubi. This is not sponsored or anything like that, but I've watched Tubi. I've watched the universe give birth to Tubi, and I'm watching Tubi grow up, and it's really cool to see like they have shows on there like The Jeffersons. Oh my god, I was just on Tubi and I was scrolling through. They have so 227. Oh my god, they have so many old shows, and I'm like Sanford and Son. Just so many things, and it's it's cool because I remember when Netflix first came out, before Netflix started doing Netflix originals, they had a lot of old shows. But then cable networks started doing these streaming distribution deals. And so all these shows that we loved for like nostalgia and stuff like that were removed from Netflix. And then you saw Hulu kind of jump in and do distribution deals. Then Peacock came out of nowhere and they have a huge deal with NBC and Comcast Universal. And they also have deals like when Comcast or NBC releases a movie in theater, you can get like direct, it's in the theaters, but you can also watch it on Peacock. So to see like a lot of those shows kind of go away from like the main conglomerates of media streaming, fall into Tubi's lap. I'm really like, Tubi is that girl. Like, y'all can say what you want, but Tubi is that girl. And I've watched some amazing looking movies on there. The production quality on there has gotten a lot better. And it's just overall like really great to see. So this episode is, if you didn't read the title, the TV show is Big Mood and it's on Tubi. It's a Tubi original. And I'm going to reference my notes so I can give y'all some information. Because as I continue to do this, I also want to grow in the way that I do my recaps and the information that I present to you. And as a fellow filmmaker, I was like, why am I not telling y'all also like who the crew and director and cast members and stuff are? Like that's important to me as a consumer of film and television. So I'm gonna do the same. So Big Mood, season 1, episode 1, the title is called Up. So Big Mood is a dark comedy and it's about best friends Maggie and Eddie who've lived in each other's lives and each other's pockets, literally like dang near their entire lives. But now that they're older and they're approaching like that pinnacle age where you're like crossing over from, you know, your childhood mistakes of the 20s into your 30s, will their friendship and their relationship survive? The show stars Nicola Coughlan, who is the beloved Penelope of Bridgerton, and also stars Lydia West. The show was created and written by Camilla Whitehill, and Rebecca Asher actually directed all 6 episodes of the first season. And Rebecca Asher is also known for directing episodes on shows like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Ranger, and Dead to Me. When I saw Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I was like, oh, I can definitely see her influence in here because the comedic timing and everything is kind of like familiar with some of the episodes that I've seen in Brooklyn Nine-Nine specifically. And style wise, I think it's like just a little bit closer to that with some elements of Dead to Me. So shout out to you, Rebecca Asher. So jumping into the episode, we open up with a song by Rico Nasty. Like, come on, that was a phenomenal choice. So we open up with the song by Rico Nasty playing, and you see this girl who is Nicola Coughlan, her character, riding on a scooter through like a downtown district. So Nicola's character is Maggie. So hello, Maggie. Maggie walks into this bar and she just randomly gives a scooter away to like some random person. Now I thought it was like a Lyft scooter or like a Lime bike, but apparently like she bought it. And she said that as she pulled up to the bar and she saw her reflection in the glass windows, she was like, oh yeah, this is not my personality. So she just gave it away. So she walks in and then that's when we meet Eddie. So Eddie owns the bar and she also tends the bar. And she wants Eddie to take off work to accompany her to her old school to mentor some students in like this drama club or whatever. So she was talking about like, oh my God, they begged me to come back. And then we do like a flashback where she's actually begging them to go and try to like do something at the school. And it's really for her own personal gain, and she's just exaggerating about her life so that she can go back to the school for whatever reason. So at the same time, Eddie is hosting like this pub quiz thing. Y'all know when you go to the bar and they do like trivia night or whatever, and it's literally just 3 people in there, and so Eddie is just kind of like avoiding the topic of conversation, because you could just kind of see, even just in this interaction, that Eddie is kind of used to like Maggie has something up her sleeves. Like she don't even like kids, and you're not doing this out of the kindness of your heart. So Eddie eventually acknowledges Maggie, and she brings it up. She was like, bro, like, you don't even like kids. Like, what the hell is going on between the sheets in my home? And so Maggie tells her, like, obviously she's going out there for selfish reasons, because she had this crush when she was younger on one of the teachers there. And so and I think she was like already going to be in town for something else that she mentioned. So she was just kind of like trying to rope Eddie in as just like a wing woman to accompany her on this strange mission, because she's turning 30 now, and I'm all grown up, and I'm gonna go get what I want. Eddie is still like resisting at this point until Maggie says that they can just play pretend, and Eddie can pretend to be her publicist. And so they kind of give her this fake name. What was the name that she gave her? Did I write this down? So I didn't write the name down. I don't even remember. Maybe it's later in my notes. I'm trying to go in sequential order. But anyways, so she ends up going, and I guess they used to do this when they were younger, as kids, just put on like these personas and just go and like have a good time, which I like it. I mean, one of my personas is Amy, and me and Amy, we have a lot of fun when we go out to the clubs. So hello. So anyways, they are on the road to Sussex. Now, I'm pretty sure, yeah, they're in the UK, but Maggie is like she is Irish, and it's one of the things that she actually used to get picked on for when she was at the school. So it's really cool that I've never seen Nicola in anything else, but I knew she was Irish, so it was really cool and kind of just refreshing to just hear her speak like her regular self, surrounded by everybody else that's speaking British or like the Queen's English or whatever. So just the nerd in me was really liking like this outside of Bridgerton. They pull up to the school and they're singing this song called Where She Belongs, and they get out. Now, I don't know if they just pulled up and like just hopped in the car, but Eddie hadn't seen Maggie's actual outfit. So let me backtrack. When they were at the bar, Maggie didn't really disclose like the true intentions. She kind of like hinted at it. So now that they get out of the car and Eddie sees her whole outfit, she was like, bitch, the fuck you got on? Like, obviously why are we here? We are not just here for kids. And that's when she talks about the teacher that she has a crush on that she wants to go see. Now Eddie brings up, and she was like, the same teacher that like basically molested you or tried to like sexually assault you. And then we go into this flashback of Maggie being like, no, like that wasn't him, that was this other teacher. And we're at a scene where she's in the gym, she's at a school dance, and she was 15 years old, and he's like trying to like push up on her, and she's like visibly uncomfortable. And then the teacher that she has a crush on comes over, and so in her mind it's like romanticized that he came to save her and he's her knight in shining armor. And so she's like, you know, what did she say specifically? She said he looked at her not in a pedo way, but like in a way where he wanted to like protect her and save her. So she was making a clear distinction between the one teacher being basically like calling him a pedophile, and then the other teacher being like her knight in shining armor. Now, pin this memory, because we're gonna come back to this. So before moving on, Mr. Wilson is the knight and Mr. Phillips is the demon. Okay, so just wanted to put that out there. So she's here to see Mr. Wilson, and she wants Mr. Wilson to look at her. Oh, Mr. Wilson. I don't know if y'all have ever seen Dennis the Menace. I had to do it. Like, the intrusive thought would not let me continue. But anyways, she wants Mr. Wilson to see like her tatas and just see like she's not that awkward teenager anymore. You know, she's all spruced up. She got everything on full display. The curves are curving. Okay. Meanwhile, back at the bar area, Eddie's brother calls her and he was like, hey girl, like I'm in town, like I wanted to see you, like what's up? She was like, oh, I'm out of town for something right quick, but how long are you gonna be in town for? So when we get back, we can link up. And he was like, oh, I'll be here for a little bit, just let me know. And then it was like a close-up scene, and then they do like a wide shot, and he's already at the bar, so he knows that she's not there. And when he hangs up the phone, he brings in an appraiser to look into the building. So right off the rip, we get kind of into Eddie's storyline, that her brother and her, I guess they're co-owners of the bar, but he's trying to sell it from underneath her and without her knowledge. So that's kind of like happening in the background with Eddie. So Maggie and Eddie are walking down the halls, and they go to like the reception desk area, and Maggie tells her who she is, and the lady was like, oh, you're that little Irish girl, top of the morning, yeah? Like, she just starts going into like these weird random Irish accents, and it's like giving Maggie just flashbacks to how much she hated the school. And so she was kind of confiding into Eddie as well, because she's like, you know, Eddie's like, is this even worth it? And she's like, look, I'm just gonna be talking to like a bunch of like 10-year-olds, like a few 10-year-olds, just talking about that, you know, do my due diligence, make it look like I'm this great, nice human being, while I'm really here for these other things. But she opens up about how she hated it, and she was always teased, always made fun of, always kind of frumpy, and would fade into the background until it was time to like make fun of her. So she hates that school. She did not want to be there. And she's like refers to them as like little shits and stuff like that. Like, she's just here for one reason and one reason only. And Eddie's like, girl, you don't even like public speaking like that. And she was like, it's cool, it's gonna be like 15 little kids, like it is what it is. Like, how bad can little children be? Like, how bad can they be? So the lady is done with the random burst of Irish accents, and she goes and lets Mr. Wilson know that she's there. And she's kind of like having this fantasy in her mind in the hallways of like how everything is gonna be. And you know, I'm trying to think, did I ever have a crush on a teacher? I think I did. I'm not gonna say which one, because this teacher, like, while it's not like super frequent that we have communications, and I don't ever want that to come out. But people who grew up with me will probably know, because everybody and their mama, and I literally mean like every girl and their mothers, loved this teacher. So shout out to you. So I get it, right? When you're a kid, you kind of like warp your imagination onto these people that help you, especially through trauma. And I know like my crush on this particular teacher, this teacher, not a pedophile, none of that, like none of the creepy weird stuff, but this teacher recognized I had written something, and he came to me and was like, what's going on? Like, this is deep, this is heavy, like, is this real? And so it was like the first teacher that truly like genuinely cared about his students. And in that, when you're going through trauma and you're going through experiences, you kind of latch in an unhealthy way. And we kind of see that Maggie has latched onto Mr. Wilson in an unhealthy way, because if you really think about it, Mr. Phillips, the dynamic based on her age and who she likes and who she doesn't like, the dynamic and the age thing is still there. But one of them is, she's like, ew, gross. But then the other one, she doesn't apply that same logic to him. And this is important in this episode, specifically because we're kind of getting into the mind of Maggie, because again, Eddie's like, a lot is happening today so far, like what is going on? So she's kind of just looking at her in this moment and just listening to her at this point. Okay, so the receptionist let her know, like, you know, he's gonna be coming out, he's a principal now. And she was like, oh, do you remember, you know, Principal Wilson, da da da? And Maggie's like, I don't know, maybe vaguely, like just trying to like play it coy or whatever. And so Mr. Wilson walks out and she's just like, it's like the Beyonce fan is going, the soft music is going. And what I really like about the comedy of it all, like cinematically, is her fantasies like happening in real life. So it kind of reminds me of what's that show, Scrubs, like when they would just have these random like comedic moments in a space where to you, the viewer, everything is like slowing down. It's slow motion. They're doing this soft thingy with the eyes and the way the hair blows in the wind, and the people standing next to them are like, are you okay? Like, the fuck? The hello, Earth to Maggie. So he comes out and he's like, oh my God, like, it's so nice to see you after all this time. Thank you so much for doing this. Like, oh my, like, you're a published author and this is your publicist. Like, oh my God, we've talked to you. You are so accomplished that we thought that it would be a great idea to not just limit your work and your influence to these 10-year-olds. We're gonna put you with the upperclassmen. It's gonna be 100 of them and we're gonna be in the auditorium. How do you like that? And Maggie's like, the fuck did you just say? And so she's like, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. And so her and Eddie kind of break off, and Eddie's like, bitch, what the fuck? She was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I can do this. She was like, girl, let's just fucking leave. Like, she's like, okay, all right, boom. I didn't see nobody at the front door. Like, I want you to peek around the corner and see if anybody is in the hallways. Like, what is up? Like, are we doing this? Yes, we're doing this. And I love this because ride or die. You know your friend and you know she committed to some dumb shit, but you're gonna also be here for her because you already know, like, this is not it. This is not like what she does. Like, hell no. So they go and then they try to sneak out, and Mr. Wilson is outside on a smoke break. So they like, fuck. So she's like, hey, or whatever. Pause. Let me go back. When she was in the hallway talking to Mr. Wilson, Mr. Phillips walked by, and Eddie was like, I wonder if he'll remember you. No, right before Mr. Wilson walked out, Mr. Phillips walked out. And Maggie was like, fuck, like, that's Mr. Phillips. And then Eddie was like, I wonder if he'll remember you after all this time. It's been like 15 years. And he looks up and he like backs up, and Eddie's like, oh shit, like he remembers. So I forgot to mention that part. So she's outside, she's talking to Mr. Wilson, and he was like, you know, you've always just been like, she was like, oh, I wasn't sure if you remember me. And he's like, no, like, you were exceptional. You asked the right questions. You were always so engaging. You were one of my star pupils. Just really enjoyed having you as a student. And she's all like blushing and everything. And they get to a point where he's talking about protecting students in some way, shape, or form. And she was like, you know, with you as principal, she was like, I'm surprised that Mr. Phillips is still working here, especially since you were there and saw what he did to me in the auditorium. And Mr. Wilson kind of like pauses and like looks away really quick, and it's this weird look. And then he's like, oh, you know, it's almost time, we need to get back into the auditorium, like, are you ready? And she's like, yeah, I'm ready. So Eddie's like, you know, like, you doing this? And she was like, you know what, fuck it, let's just do it. So they go back inside. And Maggie is just in a room trying to like mentally get herself together. And then we see a text pop up on the screen from her mom. And the text was saying that she's worried about her and that she missed her appointment. So at this point, it's just like, okay, whatever. She just puts her phone away because right now, like, that's not her focus. And she's just trying to go out there with these kids in the auditorium. So she walks into her and Eddie, they're like trying to pump her up before she goes in there. And she walks into the auditorium and it's all these bored, y'all know teenagers, like, they don't want to be here. Like, they would rather be anywhere else than a impromptu like briefing from this author who used to go to their school. So it's just that silence that only teenagers can give you. It's judgy, it's angsty, it's full of anxiety, it's full of hormones, it's full of rage, it's full of hate, it's full of depression. Like, you feel every emotion in this room. And so she's kind of like walking up like a gauntlet, like she's going to the plank over a ship. Man, I just felt so bad. And you just hear like the squeak of her feet. I'm like, oh my God. Oh, Maggie girl, trip and fall and leave or something. Pretend that somebody called you. Like, get out of there. I'm not afraid of folks speaking. But feeling that scene and the sound designer really doing they big one to get that deafening but like loud silence coming through the screen, my heart was pumping. I'm like, oh my God, she already like came here under false pretenses. What the fuck is she gonna say? Because now these kids are actually old enough to rip her facade apart. Like the 10-year-olds, they probably would have asked some questions that she could have just fumbled through or whatever. And you know, kids, they will say some things to humble you, but like teenagers, bro, no. Absolutely not. They are visceral, okay? Everything they feel on the inside, they're about to put it on the outside, and you will be at the end of their like verbal assault. So as she's walking up, she's like mumbling under her breath. She was like, Jesus, they're massive. These are teenagers? Like, she's like, what are they feeding them? They was big, man. They look like some grown people sitting up in there. So she gets up on the podium, and it's just bad. My sis don't know what to say, and she's kind of just like fumbling through it and mumbling through it or whatever. And she looks over to Mr. Wilson, and he's kind of like looking at her, like giving her some encouragement, because when they were outside, and I forgot to say this earlier, he was like, I've never known you to be afraid. So his memory is like, you know, she's this brave girl and she's courageous and she's not afraid of anything. So he kind of like reassures her with that look, which allowed her to like stay planted in place. So she starts off, this part reminded me of Life of the Party, when Melissa McCarthy got up to do her speech, and like as she's talking, her mouth is getting dry and she's sweating, and she's like, is it hot in here? And she like passes out at the end. So she opens up and there's a microphone, and she just screams high into the microphone, and then kind of like tried to like catch the microphone. And she goes, what is theater? Theater is but a room, but it would be better if there was wine in it. And it's just silence, and it's just like Eddie is at this point like trying to like shrink down into a chair in the back of the room, and Maggie's just getting greeted with just acne-filled hated faces. So she was like, okay, let's try like a different route. She wants to open it up for a Q&A, and somebody asked her what her bra size was, and Mr. Wilson appropriately admonished them and addressed it or whatever. So she was a little flustered from that, but she like lets out a small smile as like a thank you to Mr. Wilson. Again, feeding into this, he saves her from uncomfortable situations. And then so a student raises their hand and asks, did she like school? She said, fuck no, like instantly. And so all the kids started laughing. And so in this moment, she actually started being honest about her experience with school and how it kind of led her into writing. And so then she's getting more hands going up and just actually having a genuine, honest conversation with the kids. And so everything is like relaxed and everything is good to go. So her and Eddie leave and she was like, oh my God, like I can't believe I got through that, and everything like that. And Eddie was like, hey, we gotta go because my brother, I just got a call from somebody else at the bar, and they were like, they told her that her brother was there showing around somebody who was appraising the place. So she was like, hey, we gotta get back. And then she was like, all right, give me a minute or whatever. So she goes into Mr. Wilson's office and she was like, hey, I just wanted to say, thanks, for giving me, for looking out for me and, stuff like that, bringing up the fact that it was like that, some years ago. And then, she's kind of closing the gap on them a little bit, and things are kind of heating up, and a little bit by little, she's like admitting that she kind of like always had a crush on him and all these other things, and she's wondering if he felt the same. She's older now, I'm older now, what can we do? And he was like, I've always like thought that you were an attractive young lady, and like look at you now, like you look great. So he's like openly staring at her body and everything like that. So then they start like kissing, and he like slams everything off of his desk, and they getting it in on the top of the desk. So Eddie is walking around looking for her, and she goes to the administrator and she was like, hey, have you seen Maggie? And she was like, oh, she went to go see Mr. Wilson to thank him. So she goes outside the door and she hears them getting it in, like during the school day, loud, echoey, like the halls are clear, so it's just loud. Like y'all been in the student hallway when you go to the bathroom or something, and the silence of the hallway actually makes every single thing like that much more amplified. Great acoustics for singing. And so Eddie's like, are you shitting me? She's like, okay, well, like, okay, like cool, I guess it's a good way to thank him. So she's not like super trippy. So anyways, this other teacher named Miss Finch comes around the corner. Now, let's go in reverse. Miss Finch saw Eddie and Maggie, like it was like in the middle of Maggie telling Eddie like how she hated everybody there or whatever. And Miss Finch comes around. So turns out Miss Finch and Maggie were in the same grade, like they went to school together. And I guess she just always thought Maggie was nice. And so she was like, oh my God, like we need to catch up, everything like that. She was like, I'm a teacher here. My kids go to school here too, like, so everything's cool, like I had all these kids, blah blah, what are you doing? And you could just kind of tell she was like vomiting her life, and you in the way that it's like, yeah, I ended up getting married and immediately pushing out 3 kids, and so I just been doing this, and they've just been them in my life and in my teaching, but we should go out and catch up. So it was like a word vomit of her just being stressed and actually seeing a familiar face and just wanting to like catch up and leave them kids at home with their daddy. So Miss Finch is coming to the principal's office, and she has these kids, and so Eddie's like, oh, like he's busy, and she was like, okay, that's fine, and she's still trying to go in, and Eddie was like, no, like he's busy, like you can't go in there. And she was like, it's fine, like he's expecting me, and like he's my husband. And Eddie was like, what? And at this point, there's nothing Eddie can do. So Eddie just kind of like, the lady just kind of moves past her, and she's just waiting for like all hell to break loose, and you just hear this scream. And so we go into the room, and she's like trying to cover her kids' eyes. It's a boy and a girl. She's trying to cover her kids' eyes, and she's screaming. And so Maggie's like, girl, like what the fuck, like what are you doing in here? And she's screaming at the principal. She's like, what are you doing? And she was like, why are you in here? like, what the hell? And that's when Miss Finch is like, he's my husband. And so Maggie looks at him and she's like, what the fuck? And they're just all standing there. So she kicks the kids out and she was like, go out and wait. And so she's like, what the hell is going on? Like, has this always been this way or whatever? And then, so Maggie's looking at him too. She was like, you married one of your students? She was like, you told me, like, because he was telling her, you know, little sweet nothings or whatever, like, oh, you was the only student that I ever had my eyes for. And so now that whole, like, romance, that whole facade is over. And now she sees him for the predator-like nature that he is. And so then Miss Finch is yelling, you said that I was the only one. So they're both in this space where back when he, I guess, first was courting Miss Finch, they don't really say if she was a student when it happened. But for me, based on the look that he gave Mr. Phillips during Maggie's flashback, well, not when Maggie was outside, when she asked him why didn't he fire Mr. Phillips, to me that look was they maybe had an understanding and they may have used the school to groom girls into relationships, which is why he brushed her off outside when she brought up a real concern. You saved me, so why is he here? And then you completely bypassed it. So you at some point, while Miss Finch was either a student or immediately after she was a student, told her how you always had a crush on her even when she was your student, and that you had never felt this way about any other student before. Because now they're both hurling these accusations at him. He told Miss Finch that when she, in the past, but he just told Maggie this today, that he had never liked a student the way that he liked her. So he's trying to like pull his pants up, and Maggie's like, so I'm gonna go. And she leaves. Her and Eddie, like the next shot, they're both like busting out of the doors and flying down the steps, hurrying up, getting into the car. Barely got seatbelts on. She's like, bitch, drive, like go, 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 go. And they're kind of like laughing about it along the way, because in the chaos of it all, like in the storm of it, so many things happen so fast, all you can do is laugh because your mind cannot grasp the gravity of the entire situation at that moment in time. So they pull back up, and Eddie pulls up in front of Maggie's house, and Maggie was like, thank you for accompanying me on another gorgeous day out. And she's like cracking up. And at this point, Maggie had ignored another text from her mom, and Eddie is not finding this funny at all. And so she asks her, she's like, are you okay? And she was like, I've never felt better. She was like, oh, that thing back there, like, you know, whatever. And then Eddie goes, you are acting very manic, and you have not been like this in a while. Are you taking your medication? And so now, like, the bomb is there. So you're watching it this whole time, and you're like, this is strange. Like, this is a strange way to act as your 30th birthday is coming up. But you know, we all have those friends that don't really mature, and they're like afraid to get older, and so they're trying to do like this last hurrah before they feel that mentally their lives are going to be over. And so now, coupled with the mom's text messages, we know that Eddie knows that the last time Maggie was in this situation, she stopped taking her medication. So Maggie's like, no, I'm fine. And Eddie was like, you know what's on the other side of this. You cannot do this. Like, I can go upstairs with you. You know, I can stay with you through the night. I'll deal with my brother tomorrow. And Maggie's like, no, like, it's cool. I'm fine. So then she goes into her house, and everything is kind of like looking amazing, and the lights and stuff, and the sun is shining through, and she's kind of just like reminiscing at this point, and like allowing the things to absorb of what actually happened in her day. So she's smiling, and she's just kind of like sighing into things, and I guess feeling like proud of herself is how I would describe it. Like, even though she told Eddie it wasn't her finest moment, it was like she felt like things could have been worse, and she accomplished her fear of public speaking. The facade of who Mr. Wilson actually is broke, and so she had a lot of realizations this day. And then she gets another text from her mom, and she was like, you stopped taking your meds. You need to go to your doctor. Like, you cannot miss these appointments. And Maggie smirks and sent her a text back and said crazy, with like that crazy like emoji face with the tongue out and the eyes, like doing this whole thing. And then she lays down just kind of pleased with herself, and then instantly, like, it's like zooming in on her, and then it jump cuts and it backs away, and you see her still on the couch, and it's nighttime, and her house is disgusting. It's like flies around, dishes and food and everything piled up in the kitchen, clothes everywhere. Even the look of her apartment, it's like that bluish gray hue. There's no color in life anymore at all. And it's coming back over to her, and the camera kind of goes in, and then she looks up at the camera, and then she just goes, damn it. And it cuts to black. So that was a lot of information. Like, I don't know why I'm speaking like a robot. I don't know why. You know, I found out doing podcasts that I speak very like staccato. I don't know why words just don't go fluidly. And then now that I'm doing my recaps, it stands out even more because I want to get my notes and I don't want to miss anything. And so I'm like looking down, reading, and then trying to look back up. And because I'm also doing like a video recording, I'm trying to like not have the video be weird. It's a lot of stuff going on. But anyways, so there's that on this episode of Big Mood titled Up. So the end of the episode tells us why the title of this episode is that way. She was having a manic episode because she is bipolar, and so this whole episode was just these extreme things where she was just in an upward trajectory and heightened feelings of just for her happiness. But what Eddie ends up recognizing as like an extreme like delusion. What I do love is that her diagnosis of being bipolar is not a secret, and that she has a friend who, even when her friend in the beginning was kind of like going along with it, she knew what was up, and she didn't talk to her in like an accusatory way of like or like a disappointed way. I loved how it was written for her to care about it and to remind her of what happened the last time, and to let her know that she is there for her. Yes, she does have like kind of her own little emergency going on, but I like that she didn't just drop her off and was like, okay girl, I'm gonna talk to you about this tomorrow. Like, she stopped and said, I know what this is. I will be there when we're on the other side of it. I love you. I'm going to come back to you. And so I just really love like the beauty of their friendship of it all. But you can also kind of see in Eddie a little bit of frustration with it getting old. And so if you remember at the beginning of this episode, you know, it talks about, you know, they're getting older, and will their friendship last through their transitions. So Eddie is kind of like this responsibility. She owns this bar. Her brother's trying to like backdoor her. Her life is kind of moving in a more cemented career path. And it's not that being a playwright and like a published author is not good. But we have Maggie with an unstable career path, and she also does not have stability in her life. So the end of the episode, at least that ending moment with them in the car talking to each other, that's kind of where your juxtaposition and the plot of the show happens. She loves her, but she's exhausted. And Maggie is like, no, it's fine, I'm fine. And as you move through the episodes, because this one I did end up watching like 2 more episodes, and it's 6 episodes altogether, you see her approach to her own mental health in the lack of seriousness that she portrays to her friends is frustrating to her friends. I don't know that I've ever seen a show that truly attacks this particular mental health. I don't want to call it a disorder. I don't want to call it an issue. I don't know what to call it, but that addresses this. I've never seen anything attack it this head on with this much care. So I appreciate the writers, I appreciate the directors, and the actors for having a level of care and grace as they navigate this thing. And I do hope that a season 2 comes from it. Now y'all know Bridgerton likes to take 10 years in between seasons, and season 4 of Bridgerton is going to be about Benedict, so maybe we won't see Penelope as much, although she's like the main, she's the Lady Whistledown. I don't know, we need to figure it out with this schedule. But if you miss seeing Nicola on TV, you can go ahead and head on over to Tubi and you can catch her on Big Mood. Again, it's 6 episodes. It's a great topic, and I think they do a really good job with the dark comedy genre at addressing something that would be hard to digest if it was just a drama or if it was just dark, and kind of give it a little bit of a light element while addressing some very serious issues. I didn't make it all the way through all the episodes, but I really do want to know if the molestation kind of was like a trigger in high school. As far as the information I have right now, I don't know. She didn't really describe her childhood and the stuff that she did talk about in the flashbacks of any of these things, but that was a defining moment. And I'm not a psychologist or anything, but there are a lot of things that happen psychologically within you that are triggered by traumatic events, and how you cope with it and how you get through it or abandon it or whatever manifests in other mental situations and events that, if they get out of control, can be detrimental to your life. So now that she's recognizing the fact that her favorite teacher was also a predator, I'm hoping that she goes back to that moment to really unpack a lot of those things and a lot of the stuff that she held on for the last 15 years with this make-believe life, and that going back to that moment and going back to the root and really taking the fog off of her glasses of her own life and looking at it for what it was. I hope that leads her back to wanting to help herself in order to manage her bipolar nature in the ups and downs that comes with it. So there's that. I hope y'all enjoyed this episode. Got a little deep there at the end, but it's all good. But like I said at the beginning, you can follow me on Instagram at So There's That Podcast. You can also listen to me on Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. Make sure to leave some reviews. You can give me some 5 stars. I always put polls and like Q&As and stuff on there as well. So interact with me. I'm very interactive. You can follow me over on Twitter. I'm never calling it X, okay? You can follow me over on Twitter at Kivanshi. And basically on Twitter, I'm still tweeting like my thoughts, but a lot of it is rooted around television and film and stuff like that. So if you listen to this because you like what I'm saying, then you can go ahead and follow me on Twitter too, because you'll probably like what I'm tweeting and what I'm talking about. And with that, I will catch y'all in the next episode.